just where he was. When the giant came across him, he stood still and looked at the prince for a little. Then he took him up in his arms and carried him home to his house, and was exceedingly kind to him. He gave him to his wife, saying he had found this child in the wood, and she could have it to help her in the house. The old woman was greatly pleased, and began to fondle the prince with the utmost delight. He stayed with them, and was very willing and obedient to them in everything, while they grew kinder to him every day. One day the giant took him round, and showed him all his rooms, except the parlor. This made the prince curious to have a look into it, thinking there must be some very rare treasure there. So one day, when the giant had gone into the forest, he tried to get into the parlor, and managed to get the door open halfway. Then he saw that some living creature moved inside, and ran along the floor towards him and said something, which made him so frightened that he sprang back from the door and shut it again. As soon as the fright began to pass off, he tried it again, for he thought it would be interesting to hear what it said, but things went just as before with him. He then got angry with himself, and summoning up all his courage, tried it a third time, and opened the door of the room and stood firm. Then he saw that it was a big dog, which spoke to him and said, "Choose me, Prince Ring." The prince went away rather afraid, thinking with himself that it was no great treasure after all, but all the same, what it had said to him stuck in his mind. It is not said how long the prince stayed with the giant, but one day the latter came to him and said he would now take him over to the mainland out of the island, for he himself had no long time to live. He also thanked him for his good service, and told him to choose some one of his possessions, for he would get whatever he wanted. Ring thanked him heartily, and said there was no need to pay him for his services, they were so little worth. But if he did wish to give him anything, he would choose what was in the parlor. The giant was taken by surprise, and said, "There, you chose my old woman's right hand, but I must not break my word." Upon this he went to get the dog, which came running with signs of great delight, but the prince was so much afraid of it that it was all he could do to keep from showing his alarm. After this the giant accompanied him down to the sea, where he saw a stone boat, which was just big enough to hold the two of them and the dog. On reaching the mainland, the giant took a friendly farewell of Ring, and told him he might take possession of all that was in the island after he and his wife died, which would happen within 2 weeks from that time. The prince thanked him for this, and for all his other kindnesses, and the giant returned home, while Ring went up some distance from the sea. But he did not know what land he had come to, and he was afraid to speak to the dog. After he had walked on in silence for a time, the dog spoke to him and said, "You don't seem to have much curiosity, seeing you never ask my name." The prince then forced himself to ask, "What is your name?" "You had best call me Snati-Snati," said the dog. "Now we are coming to a king's seat, and you must ask the king to keep us all winter, and to give you a little room for both of us." The prince now began to be less afraid of the dog. They came to the king and asked him to keep them all the winter, to which he agreed. When the king's men saw the dog, they began to laugh at it, and make as if they would tease it. But when the prince saw this, he advised them not to do it, or they might have the worst of it. They replied that they didn't care a bit what he thought. After Ring had been with the king for some days, the latter began to think there was a great deal in him, and esteemed him more than the others. The king, however, had a counselor called Red, who became very jealous when he saw how much the king esteemed Ring, and one day he talked to him, and said he could not understand why he had so good an opinion of this stranger, who had not yet shown himself superior to other men in anything. The king replied that it was only a short time since he had come there.